interesting caught our eye, but Harold Perkins has to find a position. I don't think he's a Jack. I don't think that he's a Sam. I think he's going to have to be an inside guy, or you're just going to have to be very unique with him. Guys, if you really think, let me just throw this out there very quickly. If you really think that Harold Perkins on third down is not going to be rushing the passer or spying the quarterback and doing the same things he was doing last year, you're crazy. Do you really think, do you really think that Brian Kelly and Matt House would allow for Harold Perkins to be guarding a tight end down the field multiple times a game after he showed and displayed the things that he did against Arkansas and what he did to Bryce Young against Alabama and Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, I might add? That's where we're going. That's what we're doing. Get out of here with that. 1,000% get out of here with that. Matt House didn't give you a lot, right? He talked about his defense, but I wish that I would have been there to ask him more questions. Coach, what are you going to do more on third down? I just don't get some of these questions from people. Now, he talked about his defensive line and them having to get better there. Interesting how your defensive line coach left. I'll leave it at that. But, I mean, you do got to get better up front. Guys, you were 80th in sacks. And what Matt House talked about today is strictly that. We got to find ways to get better up front. I feel good about Mekhi Wingo. I got a good understanding of Mason Smith. So what it seems to me like is Matt House is banking on that his two best defensive linemen are going to be back for the summer and are going to be back for camp. You got guys like Deshaun Womack. You got guys like Ovi. You just have some dudes that you can play with now because you are a deeper football team. You're just a deeper football team. We're not giving you anything at this spring practice at the current moment. 20 minutes of field goal the last couple of times. What are we seeing? Basically, we're taking roll and walking out. That's why I hadn't been in a week because I was an idiot and kept going or whatever. But it's just true. There's not a lot to go off of at the current moment other than what the coordinators are giving us. That's not the interesting part to me, though. The interesting thing and the interesting part to me today clearly was Matt House of last week. Not today, but of last week. I mean, why'd I call him Matt House? Mike Denbrock. What Mike Denbrock talked about last week. It's getting late. It's past my bedtime anyway. Mike Denbrock was asked some really good questions. He was asked about his quarterback. He was asked about Jaden Daniels, and he said that he's really pleased with his progression, moving things down the field. Guys, again, they're going with Jaden. I don't know why this is a thing unless Garrett can do some miraculous things. Brian Kelly's already come out and said, unless something crazy happens, Jaden's going to be your starter for this upcoming season. I hate to hurt everybody's feelings, but that's the exact man's words, word for word. I don't know. But what I do know is that Mike Denbrock did come out and say that we've been working and Jaden's been working out of the season and by himself to start gaining the confidence and hitting the passes down the field. That's it. You know that's what they're trying to accomplish. One thing that Mike Denbrock did mention is the blocking up front. Now, he clearly wasn't pleased with Mason Taylor and what he did on the end line of scrimmage. We talked about that all season. But that Mac Markway, the freshman, seems to be coming in, and someone that Mike Denbrock already has some pretty decent and pretty good faith in, that when you need to gain a few yards to get that first down, it seems as if right now Mac Markway is going to be a part of that fold and part of that plan. Now, what does that tell me of what Mike Denbrock is thinking at this exact moment? I think that he doesn't want to change a whole hell of a lot. I don't think that people really realize just how good we were offensively. Everybody's like, well, defense, 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 defense. Guys, the position group that you yelled at the most, DB, remember that? Do you know statistically from a passing, defense, sacks, interception standpoint, do you know that they were the best unit on the team last year statistically? Did y'all know that, Zach? Did you know that? That your DB room was statistically better for what they do than what the front seven was. How crazy is that, right? You were top 30 in passing yards allowed. You weren't that in rush defense. So I do say that I think that Mike Denbrock is going to keep a lot of the same stuff in with some wrinkles. But the biggest thing in all of this is him talking about how they're expanding the playbook. Was LSU running 75% of what they do last year because of faith and guys running the wrong routes like Kayshon Boutte and others? If this offense that averaged 270 yards in the air and 187 yards on the ground, if that gets better, then what? Then what? That's intriguing to me, man. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm cautiously optimistic that how good this team's going to be offensively. I think it's great that we get two coordinators that you could talk to in the offseason. You get their thoughts, you get their game plan, you get their idea, you get where they're at the current moment. I like that Mike Denbrock's back. You know, Carter mentioned something last night. Did y'all know that Mike Denbrock was Pro Football Focus's fifth best offensive coordinator in the country? A little strange, isn't it? So when you do, and we do this every March. Now we get into the film study of our shows. Man, they were just so good up front, and I think that they can get better at running the football now that they got a tight end who can be on the end line of scrimmage and really go up against defensive ends. Oh, and by the way, it's not as if Mason Taylor was that bad. He was not that bad. But I really enjoyed listening to Mike Denbrock and some of the things that he had to say when it comes to this offense. When you get into a point where you know that you know the weakness of your offense, you're public about it, you know, and we know, and I promise you, this isn't a Les Miles press conference where we're going to be spreading the ball out. Mike Denbrock knows that they're going to have to push the ball more down the field than what they did last season. But you know what else Mike Denbrock knows? He said this last year. He's already 1 for 1. He said, we're going to be a really good running football team. He didn't tell you with the running backs or the quarterback. He said, we're going to run the ball at a high clip, at high efficiency. They did. Now what's his second goal? You know what's interesting? I went back and looked at Cincinnati under Desmond Ridder, the playoff team Desmond Ridder. It's a lot of the same. Meaning you get a good team, you run the football, you help your quarterback out early, they start expanding, they start doing some good things. Now let's take it to the next level. And this is just my opinion. I think Jane Daniels is a better overall athlete and quarterback than what your boy was up in Cincinnati, Desmond Ridder. It's my opinion. He did it in the SEC already. So, really interesting for me.